My friends, welcome to Iron Sharpens Iron. We are joined today by our special guest, Steve Meyers, and we'll be talking about the concept people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Welcome back to Iron Sharpens Iron, friends. We are joined today by an absolutely phenomenal leader and good friend, Steve Meyers. So, Steve, we are so thrilled to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll hold you to the good friend part. The other part, TBD.
Humble.
There's that humble servant leader that we talked about a couple weeks ago. So, going to give a brief bio here. So, Steve sent me some of this, but as you just witnessed his humility, he really didn't go far enough into his experience and some of these things. So, I took the liberty of honestly embellishing this a little bit. So, Steve Meyers is first and foremost a husband, father, and grandfather. And I love the way he phrased this in his bio. He is also an executive operations and sales leader. Steve has a great background serving as a turnaround strategist with experience in account management and customer service initiatives. Is very well versed in transformational leadership, productivity optimization, and business analysis. And as an experienced organizational leader, his competencies extend to training, development, and I think most importantly, relationship management. Some of Steve's biggest passions are faith, family, and also driving operational excellence while accelerating revenues exponentially. But what he very much forgot to add in his bio, and which, I don't know, it's kind of flirting with the number one on your list there, Steve, is sports.
Yes.
And also golf, which gets its own category, even though it's a sport. So Steve is a lifelong Cubs fan and has spent unfortunately, most of his experience being grossly disappointed by his favorite. But I will personally attest to some of those things there in the bio. My leadership journey, as I spoke about on our very first episode, is that I had the experience of learning leadership from Steve. And so as a very young leader, had experience that I had some knowledge that I had, and very quickly under his tutelage learned how little I knew. And so, Steve, we are excited to have you here today because you are now in the fourth quarter of your career. And so the wisdom that you have gained over the years, we felt would be absolutely valuable to our listeners. And so if you don't mind, if you could just start and just kind of talk to us and about, your journey as a leader and how your current philosophy of leadership, if I dare call it that, has grown and evolved, and share some experience that you've had along the way.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you. And it's great to be with Jake and Solo. I've been listening to every one of the episodes on the podcast series here, and objectively, we're going to journey into this conversation with the intent that people can pull something out of it as they listen going forward, other than I play a lot of golf and I can write a lot of fiction. But my leadership journey, if you will. First, I want to hit on what you mentioned. People want to know how much you care before they care how much you know that, because that was a pivotal point for me during the course of my career. I had gotten the opportunity to get what I would say a really big assignment. But in leadership and leaders, there really shouldn't be a size to how you define the opportunity, right? Because if you're in that role or you're given that opportunity, it's important.
Right.
But I was going into a meeting in New York City with a very large broadcasting group who was not happy with the performance of one of their markets, which was under my direct supervision, if you will. So big group of folks, conference room, New York City, all that good stuff. The sales leader of our organization obviously noticed that I wasn't in a good headspace and simply said that to me. He's like, listen, he said, just talk to the facts. Don't tell them something we can't do. If they want to know how we got to where we're at, great, but more importantly, how we're going to get to where we want to go and deliver a representative sample that is truer to what we look like today. So just, they want to know how much you care before they care how much you know. And if you can approach this conversation with that passion, then you're going to leave in a better spot than we are right now. So that was good. But my my journey, and it definitely is a journey. And even though I am in the fourth quarter, and sometimes it's hard for me to admit that, it started really early on. And I attribute it as I've thought about the opportunity to join you two guys. You know, I walk every morning for about 5 miles, and it
Nice.
allows me the opportunity to kind of clear my head, even though I'm listening to sports radio most of the time. Sometimes I find myself not even remembering what they said for the last 45 minutes. But early on, right, I was a young man, and I was blessed with the opportunity to become a father. First, I was blessed with the opportunity to meet someone who I've now been married to for 40 plus years. I use it plus because she might listen to this and I don't want to get the year wrong. Anyway, so, you know, that was kind of, hey, this, you know, here we go. And I was young and I was silly and probably not doing a lot of things that I should have been doing. And here you are faced with being a father. So that was probably the starting point, and I didn't even realize it. You know, if I think about that journey, as you mentioned, Jake, that's now evolved into 5 children, 5 families, 14 grandchildren. It's a lot of fun, and it's a huge responsibility. I used to tell people when I got to a point in my career when I was put in front of groups as their leader. Number one, I always considered myself part of the team. Right, we weren't going to accomplish anything without the effort of the complete team. But I do what I do with as much passion as I do it because I've brought a lot of responsibility onto myself. And there's sacrifices on the other side of that, right? I mean, there's only so much time in a day. So say all that to say, started off in my career right out of college, was given the opportunity to knock doors and pitch what it meant to be a Nielsen television family. That was pivotal as well, because I think that put something inside of me that created drive, energy, passion, adaptability, and probably most importantly in my mind was again another opportunity to lead myself. Right? So when you're given that opportunity, whether it be personally or professionally, whether you're leading a family of one or 15 or 20, right? It starts with who you are and what you want to do, and objectively, and most importantly, how you go about it. And that's parlayed over the last umpteen years into assignments that have been, you know, small in nature to big in nature. But again, like I said earlier, when someone would say that's a really big client, I would say, aren't they all really big? Shouldn't they all be approached in the same manner? Whether they're spending $2 million with us or $10,000 with us, I just think that they should be given the same attention and drive to the same results. That's kind of been my approach.
Good call. Steve, can I ask you something?
Yep.
So I've heard this time and time again, and my dad, he told me, when I was younger, and he said it over and over. He said, son, finding your forever partner will be the most pivotal and important decision you'll ever make. And you have to think carefully, and you have to understand how important that is. More important than the jobs that you choose, the education that you choose to, you know, that road you choose to go down, everything.
Mhm.
Do you find that's true? Because you said that, you know, that's where my true leadership started, when I found her and was blessed to be a father.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's true? Like without her, without those kids, without the responsibility, without the knowledge that you gained from those children that you had and stewarding their lives as a father and as a husband, do you think that you'd be where you are today?
100% everything that I've accomplished, right, is because of the very best friend that I met all those years ago. So, two things. One, you just compared to me your dad. I'm not offended.
I'm just saying, the other wise man that I know in leadership.
And you know, my best friend, my partner, my wife, however you want to phrase it, right? She's all of those. She is unquestionably the champion of what we've done over the course of all these years. I've taken her from a small town in Iowa to Chicago to Florida, back to Chicago to Tennessee. And, you know, there were many, many times during the course of my career when I was gone and had left a family of 2, 3, 4, 5 with the love of my life. So she is my biggest champion, and would not have done or be where we're at without, you know, both of us being in it. It's been it's every day's great. And I have a couple of quotes that I kind of keep at the top of my mind. Some I've got in my phone. I like to go back to them every once in a while. And you mentioned how important it is. There's a quote that I borrowed from someone that says, wealth can be accumulated over time. Time cannot. Make the most of every minute with your faith, your family, and the integrity with whom you engage. It's one of those things. And I know, I sit here today knowing that I missed a lot of time chasing career opportunities, and that's been the journey. I almost said it is what it is, but that's another pet peeve of mine that Jake probably notices or has noticed over the years. When someone would say to me, "Well, it is what it is," they kind of shrug their shoulders, which sends the body language that you've already given up, right? It's not that, because if it's that, then you've given up. So it's what you make of it that turns the trick.
Love that.
Stevie, I want to go back to what we were just talking about with fatherhood and marriage and, changing it. Like what really shifted in there for you? Like if you look at yourself before then, you look at how that changed your perspective after, what was that shift?
It was really probably driven by, some realities in my corporate journey that just, it was, you can be doing everything in your mind, I guess, right? You can be doing everything to be successful in the career that you've chosen to be in, whatever it is. At any given point in time, someone can say to you, "Thanks for your services, but we don't need them anymore." In a parental family environment, that's going to be a decision that you make. Your family's probably not going to say, "Hey, thanks, Dad. It's been a great 20 years, but we really don't need your services anymore." I hope not, anyway.
I mean, I was looking at the living room and just how disastrous it was after my sons were playing yesterday. And I was thinking, you know what? I might put these boys on a performance improvement plan. And if they don't get it together, then we might, be okay with their services.
As long as it's a plan with objectives that will get from where they're at to where they want to be. You get out a toy, put a toy away. It's part of a plan. People have a huge negative connotation about performance and improvement plans, and that's probably because of the way they've been delivered over the course of the year.
Yeah.
Right. But it's hard to hear, but it truly is. Hey, this is me talking to you about how we're going to go from where we're at again to where we want to go.
Right.
How we're going to do that. And it's both of us.
I love that. It's like the maturing of the word. It's probably like the title, performance improvement plan. And as you mature, you find, to your point, Steve, that a performance improvement plan is a good thing. It's how do I get you from where you are, it is what it is, to it is what it should and could be. And I liken it to when I was younger, discipline. You're going to be disciplined. It's like, oh, it's a bad thing. I hate it. And now discipline is like a cornerstone of like everything that I am and everything that I want to be. It like evolves over time.
Absolutely. I would tell my kids and people that I work with, listen, there's consequences to every decision. That's common sense. It's also a learned value that I've been through over the course of my lifetime. When you're faced with making a decision, you can go this way or you can go that way. There's consequences to each way you go. And I heard another quote a while ago where the gentleman said, "Do the right thing, not because it's the right thing, because it is, but don't do the wrong thing because there's consequences for doing the wrong thing." They're different than doing the right thing.
I love that.
That's not easy, right? I've again, thinking about leadership and opportunities, I've told folks, listen, if you do it with honesty and integrity and common sense, you could put yourself in a position to have a better outcome than ignoring either one of those three. So stop, pause, think, and then act.
Stop, pause, think. So one of the things that I do daily, I got it from one of my mentors, Tamium Dysart, shout out, shameless plug, Think 3D. Check him out. But he has this very neurotic day tracker, i.e. every day at the end of the day, and if I'm honest with myself, I usually get to it the next day because I forget. But you ask yourself, if I could do today over again, what would I do differently? And if there's anything, you mark it down. And you mark yourself off 10%. And then you track over the days and the weeks, the things that are stopping you from being your best, because great days lead to great weeks, lead to great quarters, lead to great years, lead to a great life. And if you don't have that game tape to look back on, see what's really throwing you off, you're just really winging it. And one thing I've found that throws me off is not stop, prioritize, and then go. I'm just a lot of the times reactive.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times when I am reactive and I don't take that time to stop, to pause, to really think about what I should do, I find myself making decisions in a state of being emotionally compromised. I'm
Mhm.
upset or I'm angry or I'm anxious or I'm this, that, and the third. And then I
Mhm.
do the thing and then I look back and say, I wish I just stopped. Like, I think that advice of you should never go to bed angry is like the worst
Right?
advice in the whole world. Like, you don't want to talk to me right now, honey, because I am so emotionally compromised. I need to get some sleep. I'm gonna wake up jovial. I'm gonna forget what we were even talking about, and everything's gonna be okay. So I love you said stop, prioritize. What'd you say? Stop? What was it?
Stop, pause, right? Think and then act, right?
Stop,
So
pause, think, and then act. I love
I,
that.
I always, I'm a simple guy from Iowa, right? Go Hawks.
Go
Um,
Hawks.
common sense is just something that I can remember reading and hearing and then saying it's very uncommonly applied, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there used to be performance evaluations in my career where two of the competencies would be honesty and integrity, and I'm like, well, if you're not doing those,
Yeah.
why are we going any farther in this? So
Yeah.
I just kind of combined common sense into it and said, because,
Yes.
I've had the opportunity to be a part of teams that we weren't doing brain surgery. I have a really good friend who is a mentor, who's a pastor of the church that my wife and I belonged to in Florida for a lot of years. They're still two of our very good friends, even though we moved away all those years ago. And he would say to me, hey, Myers, nice job. Because my wife Lori worked for him, and he would hear something from her, and he would say, Myers, nice job, man. You're really making a difference. And I'd be like, with all due respect, I'm working in this factory. You're saving people's lives. You
Yeah.
know, you're making a difference, my friend. So that's solid leadership there.
I already got a page full of notes, Steve. You're awesome.
I tell you. So, Steve, you talked about first having to lead yourself and then lead others.
Right.
And we were just talking about, discipline and some of these simple things. And as we're talking to you, you've used the term common sense multiple times, and a lot of the principles you're talking about really just seem logical and that they should be common sense. But this principle of leading yourself before you lead others, can you dive deeper into that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the dictionary, leader is a noun, but in the world of Steve Meyers, it's a verb. Right?
Mm.
It's action. So I would tell teams again in meetings, regardless of what we were doing. When you wake up in the morning, what I would ask of you is to look in the mirror and say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make a difference, a positive difference today. And I'm going to come home and I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to say, that was a good day. And I'm going to list what I did to impact a person's lives. And I've been in industries that was simply generating television ratings. I say simply, it was a pretty complex process. Life safety, career path with a couple of home security automation companies, where if we didn't do what we said we did the way we say we would do it, there could be dire consequences. But all of it for me comes or starts with, what am I doing? Right? I've got a leader, or I am a leader, a part of a team. I'm an individual contributor, but let's start with the results that I'm driving. Because if I'm successful, and then collectively solo successful and Jake is successful and we're all part of the same operating unit, we put ourselves in, we create the opportunity for a successful outcome. So lead yourself well and influence others as much as your sphere of influence is allowing you to do. Stay within the operating lines, but don't ever stop looking for areas to influence those among you and keep moving forward.
I love that. Control what's within your control, which is you. I can control, the way I bring myself to work every day. Right? I can do all sorts of things ahead of that, right, before the workday to make sure that I am bringing the best self that I can each day. But then you can't control others, and this is something that a lot of leaders get wrong, I feel like there's a perception in corporate America sometimes that the leader is in control, but they're not. And what you were saying, Steve, is you can influence,
Mhm.
right? Because of who you are as a leader and the relationship you have with your team. Going back to that quote we had at the very start, show how much you care, and then your team cares about what you're asking of them.
Right.
And so they will care about, the coaching or the performance improvement plans or all these other things we've talked about. That influence grows and is more effective. And it's not necessarily that the responsibility you're given is growing, although if you're a good leader, then over time that usually happens. But your ability to influence grows within whatever parameters your responsibility has,
Absolutely.
dictates.
Absolutely. I mean, and influence is part of the definition of leadership. So if you break it down, or as I like to break it down, as a leader, you're taking action. First, you're taking action with yourself, and then whatever the opportunity might be. And I've been blessed with opportunities throughout the course of my career to be parts of teams that were, 6 to 400 plus. And it wasn't, I fully recognized that it wasn't the leader that was going to deliver the successful results. It was going to be the team cumulatively, with every person doing what's expected of them in their role, that's going to create that opportunity to deliver a successful outcome.
I also love the start to your morning, like looking in the mirror and say, you're going to have a great day today. You're going to have an impactful day today. And then at night, going back to that same mirror and say, that was a good day, like mission accomplished. I feel like that's a better routine than most of us have, which is just waking up, rolling over, looking at our phone, looking at the state of the world on the news feed of the social media. And
Right?
how,
Yeah.
how would you say, or do you have any other routines that you would say are kind of like cornerstones to the reason why you're able to show up your best self and do what you do as a leader?
That's good. I mean, people talk about their parents, and my dad passed away when I was 13 years old. So there was some influence in my life, but I had four older brothers that were very influential in my life. I had a long relationship with my father-in-law, and he was very influential in my life. But again, two really important people were my mom, and she just had that approach and attitude to life. That here's the quick illustration. She owned a beauty shop in a small town in Iowa. And we were sitting in there one afternoon. It was a winter time, and her car was parked out on the street, and somebody clipped it when they went by.
Mm.
The person stopped, and I ran out, and the person was clearly intoxicated. Where you're in a small town in Iowa, I don't know that much. She was just like, she looks at her car. She's like, oh, it's going to be okay. Make sure you get home safely. Do you need Stevie to drive you home? And I'm like,
I ain't driving this psychopath home.
but she just, there was always, and sometimes it wasn't the best, I guess I'd have to say, but she always had that outlook that, and I've shared this with Jake, there's sunshine out there, right? It might be 100% cloudy. It might be storm and rain. You might be in the center, in the eye of the storm, but that sometimes is where the brightest sunshine view is possible. So you just you gotta find it, man. You gotta seek it out. Otherwise you're just gonna be swirling.
That's so good. That's so good. A lot of these principles that you're talking about are so very crucial, but different than like you see on like the whole leadership advice type of forums and videos,
Mhm.
It's a lot of mindset. It's a lot of perspective. It's a lot of really making sure that your ladder of success is put to the right, wall. And to your point
Yeah.
earlier,
That's
you
good.
said something where you said that you learned that no matter what happens in business, they could look at you and say, hey, your services are no longer needed. In family, that can't happen. You're in it for the long haul. It reminded me of Valentine's Day, and don't chastise me for this, gentlemen, or audience especially. But it was Valentine's Day, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm driving to Walgreens because it's the only store that's open. Yeah. Trying to find a gift for my wife and some flowers. And I remember breaking down, crying. Like, I'm such a POS. I can't believe it. What's wrong with me? I call my dad, and my dad tells me, he said, son, you could get into a car accident right now and burn 99% of your body and never be the same. And that wife at home that you've put on the back burner today, she would be there to take care of you and to love you and to tell you you're handsome and be there by your side. And that job that you're investing so much time and energy in, they would look at you and say, sir, your work is no longer needed. And they could fire you on the spot. So you have to ask yourself, is the energy, is the effort, is your definition of success truly success? Is it fulfilling? Or is it just a house of cards.
Yep.
And I had to look at my definition of success and realize that, man, do I have the nice car, the nice clothes, the position of leadership, power, money, all that stuff? Yeah, but that stuff means nothing if the most important person in my whole world, my backbone, my everything, is at home thinking that she's not loved, cared about, or she matters because I didn't even think to get her a Valentine's Day gift.
Yeah,
And
100%.
that hit me to the core. And I find that a lot of the things that you're saying are really just understanding mindset, what success really is. Does integrity, does principles, do these spiritual and biblical principles really matter more than making sure you execute on the sales goal or you're hitting those numbers? And I'm hearing from you that they're infinitely times more. But the crazy thing is, when I reprioritized my success metrics on being good, being the best husband, being the best person that I could be for the people that I loved, and to your point, relationship management, my leadership skyrocketed. Like it skyrocketed. And I'm like, whoa, I'm putting less energy in the things that I thought were going to get me to the top and more energy into the people that matter. And when I poured into the people, it seemed like my influence and my leadership and just my overall success skyrocketed. Have you found the same thing to be true?
Absolutely. You know, when people have asked me now at this point in my career, you know, hey, what's been a highlight of your career? It's really easy for me to say that it's the relationships that I've built over the years, right? Jake Anderson, for example. But there's people that I talk to today that I worked with 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, who we still connect. You know, now we're texting, but we'll call, or we're connected on LinkedIn, it's just when I can pick up the phone or the phone rings, right? And I can see that it's Marshall Langamo, who I haven't spoken to in maybe 2 or 3 years. But he says, hey man, what are you up to? And the conversation just goes like we talked yesterday. Those are the types of things that I've taken the most pride and the most value in, to have that type of relationship. You know, listen, I've made plenty of relational mistakes during the course of my life and my career. I'm sure there's family members that could attest to that. But again, you don't ever stay the same, right? Mm-hmm. You're either moving forward or you're going backwards. You just can't stay the same, whether it's personally or professionally, whatever you do. I mean, there's been moments where, from a personal standpoint, I haven't done the morning walk and I've consumed more food than I should during the course of the day. And guess what happens? The weight comes back on, and you just don't feel like you want to feel. I don't think so. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question. I do know that I like your dad a lot, and I respect and appreciate that, man, because he has a lot of wisdom.
It's I feel like I keep going back to my dad. Like, I don't know if he was the most I would probably say, well and above my dad was the most influential person when it comes to my personal leadership and me being the man that I am today. I will say that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like not staying the same. So my dad sits me down one day and he has a glass of water. It's half full. And he's like, son, is this glass half full or half empty? And I'm like, okay, I got him this time. It's half full, Dad. You got to be positive, Dad. You got to think on the bright side, Dad. And he said, son, it doesn't matter if the glass is half full and half empty. I'm like, okay. What matters is where the level of water is today versus where it was yesterday. Yeah. Is it getting more full or is it getting more empty? Because in life, you'll never stay stagnant. You'll either be losing fluid or gaining fluid. And you have to work every single day to gain a little bit of fluid, even if it's a drop. Yep. The level has to go up. Yep. And I thought that was really wise. And it's exactly what you just said. Like, you have to do the walks, because if you don't, you just lose a little bit. And I feel like the little bit that you lose by not doing the things that you know you should do, I feel like they're like chains. Like, the chains of those loss are so light that you can't feel them until they're so heavy you can't escape them. You look up one day after not having done the walks for umpteen years or exercise, and you're 100 pounds overweight, and it feels like you can't get it off. So you have to keep doing it, even if you can't feel it in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just one comment on your Valentine's Day experience there, right? I mean, and you guys mentioned this in a previous podcast, and sometimes in a relationship, the power of thank you has varying degrees of impact. Mm-hmm. So my wife and I are going to be married here in a little bit for 44 years.
Wow.
You know, so, and I know the day, and I know what my wife would appreciate is the power of thank you enough in that very moment. Probably, but to do something, whatever's within your means, right, to show that appreciation, I think is important. And to have a partner that is of the same mindset is huge because you can have, like you said, you can have the big diamond rings, you can have the big fancy cars, you can have a big fancy house, and you can have a big miserable, you know, moment, right, in life, which life's short. And pardon me for just a moment because I am going to use a word that that may catch people off guard, but I've said it before coming out of business meetings and probably wasn't being as gracious as I should have been when asked, hey, what do you think of that guy? And my response would be, life's short to be an asshole. You just don't have to be, right? You wake up every day like we talked about, and you can say, and it doesn't matter what's going on. It does, right, but it doesn't. It doesn't matter what's going on. When you engage with groups of people and you're given the opportunity to be in a leadership role, you need to seize the moment, right? You need to fix the other stuff, and there's smart people that are out there that can help you fix that. You need to be respectful, right? And be honest and act with integrity. You mentioned it's, don't never go to bed angry, but you don't want to talk to me right now. Well, then do something to shift that. Go find that sunshine, right? And get out of where you're at and get over to where you want to be. It just, it's I've told people you get one shot, you get one journey around the sun, right? So make the most of those opportunities that are presented to you. And I've been blessed with a lot of opportunities, and I've taken advantage of a lot of them in the sports arena, and in the personal arena as well. I mean, our youngest daughter and son-in-law, recently blessed us with our 14th grandchild. There is nothing more amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it does all the accomplishments and the different positions that I've had and the things that I put on my resume, those 14 grandchildren, healthy, happy, that's where it's at.
That's awesome.
Well, I love that, Steve. Right, we're talking about just progress, right? And continual learning and failing forward. As you're talking, I'm thinking back on, have I made progress? And I've shared some of the mistakes I made in early leadership on this podcast before. I could make Solo feel a lot better about his Valentine story, because my very first one being married. Elisa's gonna probably let me hear it about this because I'm bringing it up. But my very first Valentine's after marrying her was spent in a different state. So she's over in Idaho. I'm in Connecticut with the sales managers. We're scoping out office. So, it's spending Valentine's with another dude I wasn't in a relationship with. And we go out to dinner that night, and the waitress, because it's Valentine's, assumes we're in a relationship. And so that got really interesting really fast. But yeah, I heard about that one for a few years from
You were holding hands for another reason.
yeah, exactly.
Well, listen, I've left vacations. I've left family vacations, literally checked out of the hotel, gotten in the car, gone to the airport, and taken off to go somewhere to utilize that transformational strategy in the business world when I had an opportunity on the beach to utilize that transformational strategy. So again, it's choices that you make. It's that. I mean, and as far as, the progress, right, and going forward or going backwards or going sideways, man, I Googled it. There's 57,136 books on Amazon with the word leadership in them.
Wow.
57,136.
And you've read them all.
But again, I think, and I will say it again, that it starts with you. It starts with the decisions that you're going to make. I've not always made good ones. There's been consequences to those decisions. But own it and figure out if you did something wrong, or if you offended somebody, or if you didn't get the results that you thought you were going to get. Just don't ever be satisfied, right? Keep seeking out the desire that you want to seek out, as long as it's positive and it's done with honesty and integrity, and you've used common sense to get there.
I love that. The ownership piece is so big. I just experienced this today. So I was added to a group chat where one of these guys that was acting like one of the guys that you were talking about coming out of the meeting, the old a-holes, called himself out. Hey, I just want to apologize to you all for the last umpteen, weeks when I was acting like you know what. I was going through some things, yada, yada, but I figured that it's not who I want to be. And I can commit to you that I'm not going to do this in the future. And I'm sorry. And there's just something endearing about somebody who makes a mistake. You see it, and then they say, you know what? I messed up. I'm sorry, and I'm going to do something differently. There's this redemption that you get when you own something that you do wrong, and the second chance. Like, I love an underdog story when someone messes up and they come back and they do it great. It's like it does something different. So that ownership piece really is huge. Don't try to hide the fact that you're messing up. Own it. Say you're going to be better next time and just do better next time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, Steve. Like you said, you need to get out from the storm and get back to the sunshine when you're having one of those moments. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you personally do? Like when you're emotionally compromised, when the storm is, thundering in your head, how do you stop, pause, think, and act, as opposed to just stop, punch in the face, and act?
Why you play a lot of golf, huh, Steve?
I do play a lot of it. Yeah, I do play a lot. And then I'll just, and this probably, maybe not be the best approach, but it's the approach that works for Steve Meyers is, I'll excuse myself from a situation, right? Sometimes I've not always done that. I've become that person that, is pushed to the point where the explosion happens and then you just do stuff it's just not. So I strive to sense that I'm getting to the point where I need to step away. I need to go for a walk. I need to, articulate where I'm at without continuing to offend whomever I may have been in the process of offending, but just, I guess, maybe recalibrate myself, right? Regroup myself. Yeah, I spend my mornings reading my devotional. And then there's generally a verse in the Bible that comes out of the devotional that I read from a Bible that was given to me by another mentor of mine, Doc Mike, who has passed away. But I was fortunate enough in the distribution of his estate to get his Bible, which for me was the best thing I could have gotten.
It's awesome.
Because I got years of wisdom from him. So I kind of try to recalibrate myself and get myself in the spot of the sunshine. And sometimes you're in a difficult situation, and honestly, sometimes there's just not sunshine to be had, but there's still a path through it. And if you're strong with your faith and your belief, and you can put yourself. I talk about opportunities a lot, right? Because I think that everything can be viewed as an opportunity. There's going to be an outcome. So it's an opportunity to go this way or that way. It's not a crisis, could be a crisis, but it's an opportunity. And it's just kind of the approach that I've taken, over the course of the years. I've taken bits and pieces out of those 57,136 books in my life and the life journey that I've been on and the professional journey that I've been on. I try to mold that all together into something where I can have a positive impact on people and their lives.
Good.
That's powerful.
Do you find yourself leaning on your faith often and leveraging that knowledge and that realm in your leadership
In
in
those
business?
quiet moments? Yeah. I'm not the guy that's going to probably, I'm not going to quote scripture, but it's there.
In your heart.
I can tell you the moment and whom I was with when I accepted Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. Philby Park, Pastor Poole. But it's there and it's strong, and I know that, right? So whether you know it or you sense it, maybe
I can
not.
sense it.
Yeah, but I got it. Yeah.
I think that's so powerful. Faith, whether it's faith in God and Jesus, or whether it's in Allah or Buddha or whatever, a person's faith may dictate. Right? Going back to lead yourself first. I mean, that's what guides us. Right? If it's Christianity, and I'll use that example because, that's my value system and faith system that's my moral compass. And that's what says in any situation, Jake, here's what you're going to go do, because your integrity and your values and everything goes back to that faith system. And so for, leaders and other individuals who are maybe listening, I think that's very powerful, and kind of the foundation of everything we're talking about today is start with who you are, recognize your moral compass, your values, and don't deviate from them. I mean, as long as your values aren't causing you to negatively influence other human beings and take away from their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
As long as your moral compass is actually somewhat in the right direction, lean on that as a leader, because those values are completely relevant in the workplace, no matter what the HR philosophy and other things may dictate in any given year. Those values are still relevant, and they're gonna guide you correctly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And whether you're leading a party of one or a party of thousands or millions, right? It starts with how do you do what you do? Another mentor of mine that would measure it in say-do ratio in the business world. You know, hey Myers, this is what you said you were going to do. How well did you do it?
Yeah.
What's that ratio looking like? Again, it's influence what you can influence, control what you can control. There's a lot of stuff out there that goes on that, to your point, Jacob, can negatively influence the environment or the health of people, and that's unfortunate. But choose not to be a part of that. I've heard countless people close radio shows, podcasts, television shows, conversations. I've done it myself. Go make a positive difference in someone's life. Choose to do that. Go make a positive difference in someone's life. And if you're leading a party of one, do something for yourself. If you're leading a party of 400 or 1,000, spread the opportunity, right? Leadership for me is a transfer of belief. It's a transformational activity. You know, when you're given an assignment to be a part of a team, to be quote unquote the leader of that team, you want to assemble the team that's going to put you in an opportunity to be the best that you could be at whatever it is. I shared with my oldest son during our one-on-one last Friday. He was talking about hiring someone to join his team. And again, I stole this at a leadership conference when I heard the president of the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain say, when you're going through that process of recruiting and hiring someone to be a part of your team, change your mindset to say you're recruiting and you're selecting someone to join your team. There's a difference between selecting and hiring. You know, when you're hiring someone, yeah, come on the team. When you're selecting someone to join your team, that's a different leadership accomplishment, because then you're saying, I'm gonna invest me and that person into what we're about to do, and that's important.
Yeah, it's like the NFL draft. They're not just picking anybody. There's a
Yeah.
definite selection process, and they've
Definite
scouted
selection
them and
process.
looked at all what they can bring to the team before they invite them to come to the team, and only then do they start the negotiation process.
Steve, what do you look for when you're selecting someone?
So during the course of my career, thank you for asking that, by the way. during the course of my career, I would say to people at some point during the course of the interview, okay, tell me during the course of your educational journey, what you did aside from studies. Did you do theater? Did you do debate? Did you do drama? Were you in the choir? Were you in sports? Tell me if you've got a journey in there, and what did that look like? What was your highest level of achievement? And I would get out of those conversations, either someone was talking about I, or they were talking about we. Generally, the we person probably ended their story using a sports analogy with, by my senior year, I was captain of the team. Probably means you've got leadership tendencies for me. So I kind of, or you got the lead of the senior play, so anything like that. I just looked for those types of things that for me said, okay, there's a fire in there somewhere. So I accept the challenge of taking whatever that ember looks like and stoking that into a bonfire, and then that person's just going to go.
Do you find yourself typically really looking for leaders regardless of the position? If it's frontline, you're looking for a leader because they have that ability to lead themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been throughout the course of my educational journey, I've been part of teams, right? Where, again, going back to that individual contributor amongst a team, collectively, if you have a bunch of really solid individual contributors, you're probably going to have a really good team.
I also want to circle back. Did you say when you're having your one-on-one with your son? So you have scheduled one-on-ones with your son?
Years ago, my wife just came over for lunch. But a couple of years ago, my wife challenged me to have a conversation, not a text exchange, but a conversation with every one of our children. I mean, and they're adults, right? Obviously, I've got 14 grandchildren. They have children, right? But, you know, to her credit, she said, you know, you should really have a conversation, an intentional conversation with each one of the kids every single week.
That's so cool.
I started that about
Wow.
2 years ago. So I've tried to do that.
That's so cool. Which just goes to show you how powerful just one-on-ones are when it comes to a relationship, that you're doing it with your children. I find the easiest thing to reschedule on my calendar is a one-on-one. And it's the most damaging thing that I could
You
do for
mentioned
my
that.
team
Yeah,
because
you
it just
mentioned that.
destroys relationships. But it's like, those are probably the most important things that I should keep on my calendar. More
Yeah.
than the meetings, more than the strategy sessions, more than the working sessions, more than the the seat at the table sessions that make you feel cool, where you're in rooms with folks that have C's before their names. The one-on-one with your people are important, huh?
Absolutely. You know, I will say this too. You know, I've had different, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I've had different responsibilities professionally over the course of my career, right? I've been a regional manager. I've been a director of operations. I was a VP of operations for a company for a period of time. I'm currently a business development manager. That's good, right? That's good stuff. But like Jake said at the top, and thank you, Jacob, for sharing that, you know, husband and dad, there's a balance there that kind of is like this. And I've not always been the best husband or the best dad, but you have to intentionally invest in that, just like you would intentionally invest in your career. And it's way more important than whatever you accomplish in your career. You know, like I said, and this was something that my oldest brother shared with me, who was extremely successful during the course of his career. He could never get back going to the Little League game that you missed because you were on a plane or in a different state, right? You just, you know, you can't get time back.
Yeah.
You can get money back. You can make a decision and you can lose money, but when you make a decision to lose time, that's gone. I tell folks, since my wife and I moved to Tennessee, and as I thought about it over the years, past 4 years, I've spent more time breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my wife than I did in the first 30 some years of our relationship. That's not good. I'm not proud of that. I'm proud of it
It's
now,
cool.
but yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Well,
And I've done a lot. And I've been blessed with a lot of opportunities. I've been blessed with a bunch of relationships that were and are super, super impactful. But I hope that what I've learned over the course of my career, given, you know, leadership opportunities, and I didn't know it right off, you know, but I started this conversation with, I became a father at a really young age. I just didn't realize at that point how impactful leadership truly is.
Steve, I have this question that's been burning ever since the one-on-one question with your kids. Have you delivered any performance improvement plans as part of those one-on-ones?
Absolutely. 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 And I've even said, right, again, judge me if you want. I've even said, listen, we've had this conversation. We've had this conversation 4 or 5 times. So if you want to rehash it, you can, but know that I'm not listening. And I'm not being disrespectful. And I quickly caveat to say, what do we got to do differently?
Right.
Right? What do we got to do differently? And how can I help?
You know, I find myself as the authority figure. Like, say with my son, he's 4, so duh, right? But I remember one time I was doing something and my son put me in timeout. And I went just to humor him, you know what I mean? I said, this is kind of cute. So I went and sat, you know, in the little timeout chair. And he's like, okay, daddy, you're out of timeout. Come here. And he grabs me by the face and he goes, you gotta listen. And I was like, oh. And I was like, I found myself saying, that's really good advice because I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever been in a one-on-one with your son or a subordinate or somebody that's below you in the hierarchy, but gives you really good advice? And like, do you have any suggestions or like tips on leaders for
Well,
that? Because I feel like
leading
one of
up.
the biggest gaps is like, you're higher in the hierarchy, so no one could tell you anything, especially not your son or someone that's definitely below you in the chain. But
Yeah.
sometimes those are the people that know you the most. And sometimes, daddy, you just got to listen, right?
So in one of the podcasts, Jake mentioned that we were at a leadership conference, right? And we were going through a exercise where we all sat around the table, myself and the folks that were direct reports of mine at the time, and you had to, the thought was you'd share something about your leader that you would like them to not do or to do differently. You know, Jake took the opportunity to criticize me, having been part of my team for, I think,
I
6 weeks.
remember that. He's him
Right?
telling
Remember
us that story.
Right? So, but what I've tried to do during the course of my career, and I know I said at the top, ideally, I come into this conversation with the objective that there'll be takeaways for whomever listens to it. If it's one or if it's 100, right? There'll be takeaways, and that would be whether you're a young leader or a seasoned leader, no matter where you're at, whether it's personal, professional, when you are in a position of leadership, people are always watching. They're watching how you do what you do. They're watching what you do. They're watching the decisions that you make and what you say. You know, and I've done plenty of things where I've said things that I'm not proud of in ridiculous situations. Watching the Cubs, for example. You know, in one of Jake's in one of your podcasts between the two, you were talking about Jake was very gracious in mentioning that, you know, I was formative in his leadership journey and that he never heard me say anything bad about anyone. Right? My kids blew up my phone. He's never watched the Cubs game with you, Dad. He's never watched a Cubs game with you, Dad. So, but you know, then that speaks to my point of they're always watching.
Yeah.
They're always watching.
I need to make a small edit to our transcription here. I did not criticize Steve. I shared an opportunity that he had in front of him.
Love it. I love it.
It's scary though, right? Even however many years later, like it's scary to criticize, give an opportunity to somebody that you deem higher in the hierarchy. It's
I was
just
terrified.
so scary. It's like, what do you guys do to overcome that challenge? Because I have things to say to people that are above me in the hierarchy, not necessarily my direct boss here at work. See how I give myself an out right there if he's listening. But just people above me in the hierarchy in general. Like any tips on how you could like deliver that message that's not going to get you excommunicated? Because that's the fear, right?
Well, and words are powerful, right? And it's how you say what you say. You know, I would share with people that would, you know, tell me, wow, that conversation blew up. Well, tell me about it. And, you know, they started with, listen, what you're doing is just wrong. Okay, where do you think it's going to go from there?
Yeah.
You know, is it on the upward trajectory, or did you start down here and you fired the first volley across the beat? I don't know. I'm not wired that way. And I've had plenty of moments where, listen, I'll share something just between us three. I got kicked out of Little League games when I was coaching earlier in my life, right? Where I just lost it. And, you know, now I can look back and go, wow, that was really ridiculous behavior. But to the point of they're always watching and they're always listening, there was a group of 12-year-old boys that were seeing their coach lose his mind over a baseball game.
That's a good
Right?
call.
So, and I've said a lot about, I don't want to miscommunicate. It's really important to do everything you can do to be successful, in my opinion, right? Whether it be personally or professionally. Do things that make you better every single day. So, you know, I've done the opposite, and I've done both. I guess that's what I should say. I'm of the opinion that I like to go this way more often than I like to go that way.
So good.
I've been the A word, unfortunately.
Me
at
too.
points.
Yeah.
I've been the sloth too.
too.
I would say that, you know, sloth would probably be my sin of choice. That's what God gave me to wrestle with. And I think all of my not doing the things to make myself better in life have come from this rooted like place of wanting to be comfortable and avoid pain. Like it's hard to go out and run. It's hard to lift weights. It's hard to, you know, tell yourself the truth. It's really hard, but I feel like you can't avoid hard. You can't avoid pain. Like it'll find you. But you get to choose your pain. You can choose your pain. You could choose the pain of discipline and being your best and going after your best self, or you can look back and be subject to the pain of regret. The difference is that discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs a ton. Discipline comes with its success and admiration and influence and a sense of self-respect that is just beautiful. And regret comes with it anxiety and depression and being broke and being at the bottom. And I found that the pain that I choose every day has to be that pain of discipline and being my best, because the pain of regret is just too heavy. It hurts too bad. So I got to choose the pain now to avoid the pain later, because that later pain sucks.
Well, and I learned this from my wife. If you stay in that pain point solo, right? If you stay in that mode, but you say, I'm going to go over here or I'm going to go over here, that's not the difference that you need to make, because it's just going to come with you. It's going to move from one spot to another until you address it.
Yeah.
I like everybody to be happy, which tends to mean that I kind of avoid things,
Me too.
So I realize it's not good, but I still do it. It's probably not the best attribute of a leader, because you can't avoid. Right? You just can't. You got to address positives. You got to address negatives. Or I should say you should address positives to the equal amount that you have to address negatives. And you should do it with the mindset of it's an opportunity. One more time, it's an opportunity to take us from where we're at to where we want to be.
Yeah.
How are we going to do that?
I'm the same
Let's
way.
make it happen.
If I had to give myself, like, have you all ever read the book Radical Candor? So it's a good book. It's essentially there's like a X axis and a Y axis. On the X axis is it's care about the person or not care about the person. And then it's a Y axis, which is challenge the person or not challenge the person. And I found myself in this place where I was caring deeply for the person, but not challenging them. So essentially I was a country club leader. People were happy. My attrition was fantastic. Everyone wanted to stay, but they weren't growing. And in fact, they were atrophying. And I had this conversation with God when I was praying about being a better leader. And he said, would you rather be a good guy in someone's bad life? Or would you rather be the bad guy sometimes in someone's good life? I think that you'd rather be the latter.
Yep.
So sometimes you got to tell people about themselves.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to tell them the truth when it hurts. And I'm just not comfortable with that. It's really hard for me.
Yeah. Before we ventured into this podcast, I had a few quiet minutes before I came into my office here to sit down and get ready. And I simply prayed that during the course of this conversation, I would honor God and I would honor myself, represent us both in a manner that is worthy of being in that relationship. Hopefully we accomplish that.
So good. I'm writing that down. I typically, before something like this, or for when I remember, if I'm honest, I pray, God, speak through me so that whatever your will is could be done through me. But I love that. God, help me act, speak, and behave in a way that honors you and honors myself. I'm going to add that to the prayer, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
I want to circle back real quick to something that you said when it comes to doing what you say you're going to do.
Yep.
So I've struggled with this in just like my personal life. And if I could be vulnerable with you guys, I used to be a smoker and I had this cognitive dissonance. On one end, I was a smoker and I was addicted. Like, it's addicting. I don't know if you've all ever smoked before, but that's a hard monkey to kick.
Yeah.
And on the other end, I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be disciplined. I wanted to live this long life. And the two just didn't mesh. So I had this like constant struggle in my brain. But even more so, when I was a smoker, I couldn't do other things. Like I couldn't work out and gain the muscle I wanted to, lose the weight that I wanted to, be the type of partner I wanted to, be the type of leader I wanted to. And I was praying about like becoming a better leader and making more money at the time because I was broke as a joke. I couldn't even pay attention. I was broke. And I remember God saying, oh man, and God's talking to me in here, right? He's not talking to me out here. I'm not a prophet or a psychopath. So he was, talking to me in my heart. And I got this impression that he's like, oh, wow, yeah, you want to make, more money. You want to be successful. You want to be a leader. Maybe you should quit smoking. And I'm like, no, God, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about making a difference. I'm talking about doing something big in the world, Lord, like doing something for you even maybe. And he's like, okay, I get it. Sorry. Maybe I misinterpreted what you're saying, but I was thinking, me being the Alpha and the Omega, knowing everything, maybe you should quit smoking. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And I quit smoking.
That might be a common sense thing
I know,
to do.
right? But what I found was it was the cornerstone of everything that I needed, because every single hour on the hour, I'd spark up and I'd say, I need to quit this. I'm going to quit. And then every single hour I went back outside and I practiced failure because I didn't quit, and I practiced lying to myself. And after 24 hours, there was 20 times where I practiced failure and lying to myself. And then after 2 days, there's 40 times. And after 3 days, there's 60 times. And I built up all of this evidence that I cannot trust myself. If I say, I'm going to do something, yeah, right. You're going to wake up early like you're going to stop smoking cigarettes, right? I'm going to go for a walk like you're going to put that pack down, huh? And the second that I said, I'm going to quit, and I did it, and I struggled, and I freaked out, and I lost my mind. But my subconscious said, dang, you did quit.
Way to go.
And then I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the gym. And I said, yeah, you are. Just like you quit smoking those cigarettes, you're going to go. And I went. I'm going to be a better leader. Yeah, you are. Just like you put that pack down. And I realized that the cornerstone of me becoming my best self was believing in myself. Kind of like what Dr. King said. You have to believe in your own somebodyness. And that started with me telling myself the truth and doing it. And being very careful about the things that I told myself. Hey, don't say you're going to wake up tomorrow, bro, if you're not going to wake up. Don't say you're going to do something that you're not going to do, because you cannot practice that failure and lying to yourself, because it will get in there and it will stop everything else that you say you're going to do.
Yep.
Have you found like your sense of self-image, like your sense of self-worth, like the believability you have with you to be as important as I found that to be?
So absolutely. And I wanted to make 2 comments about what you just said, Solo, because that's number one, whether you realize it or not, you were leading yourself. You were leading yourself, and you were, by doing so, you were improving your say-do ratio. Because it could have gone the other way. You could have not led yourself to get out of bed. You could have not led yourself to quit smoking. You could have not led yourself to go to the gym, and your say-do ratio would have been 0. And you'd
What do
probably
you call
be
it? The what ratio?
Say-do ratio.
Say-do ratio. I love that.
I stole that from someone else during the course of my career.
Good.
Full disclosure. But yeah, I mean, again, I've said to my children, your attitude is the only thing that you can control. It's not, maybe, but let's start there. So decide how this day is going to go, because you can control you. You might not be able to control the person that cuts you off or cuts in front of you or says something negative to you, but how you react, you may not even realize it, could impact them in a different manner than, and maybe they got stuff going on, right? Maybe they got stuff going on that you're totally unaware of. Just always make the conscious decision, again, to do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because there's consequences for doing the wrong thing, because there always.
I love that.
It is. You can control your response.
Yep.
Whatever event happens, whatever someone says to you, whatever else, you get to control how you respond to it, and that dictates the outcome of the event.
So that's me in a 75-minute nutshell.
That's a good nutshell, man. That's at least a
That's a great
pistachio.
nutshell.
That's an expensive nut.
Steve, we appreciate you so much. I feel like, there was just nugget after nugget after nugget after nugget.
Yeah, you got to come back.
Wisdom. It's a lot to unpack.
I appreciate both of you. Again, like I said a couple of minutes ago, I appreciate and applaud the boldness to do what you're doing. So
It's very
if I
kind.
can help, I will.
Love you too, Steve. You're coming back. You got to.
Well-
Because I feel like we just scratched the surface.
I will leave you with this. And I took this out of Dr. Henry Cloud's book, Integrity, which is a great book. And I spoke to it at one of my son's weddings, because he had demonstrated, lady's car had broken down on the side of the road, and our son pulled over to help her change a tire. And she took the time to write a letter and send it to my wife and I read that letter at my son's wedding.
Oh, that's
Long
awesome.
story short, and back to Dr. Henry Cloud's illustration of throwing a pebble in a pond, or a rock in a pond, or a boulder in a pond. In life, you're going to create a ripple. So be mindful of the ripple that you've been given the opportunity as you start this relationship as a brand new husband and wife. You've got the opportunity to expand your ripple.
God bless you, sir.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
We'll talk again.